chat as well. If there's something interesting news wise happening, um, some hip happening news. I don't think there were any acquisitions this week in the gaming industry, right?
No, I don't think so. I think Unity was about to get acquired, but then they declined it recently. They said no to it.
Unity was getting acquired.
Yeah, for 1 point something billion, and they declined it by, and I think it was an advertising company,
Hmm,
and they said no.
interesting. I actually didn't follow this news. So what happened here?
I'm
I'll
just
probably
trying to.
Google for you.
Yeah, I'm also looking up the news. I remember reading this that Unity, I think it was called App Love, App Lovin. Yeah, 17.5 billion
Apple.
offer. Yeah, was
Yeah, yeah.
declined.
Because I remember last time Unity was valued at somewhere around 6 to 8 billion. So I was surprised that there is an offer of 1 point something billion, like you mentioned.
Yeah, 17, 17.5
70.
is
Yeah,
what the actual
interesting.
number was.
Yeah, App11 is a big company as well. They're in the ad space. And Unity recently announced oh yeah, this was just 3 days ago. That's why.
Yeah.
Uh $17.5 billion acquisition deal. Interesting. I'm not sure if folks have followed it or not. Um, in fact, since I
So
am out of date on this one, would love to learn what people think about it.
I have I read it somewhere, but don't have like any detailed knowledge about this. But I know about another acquisition that happened. So there's this company, video game and ad tech company, ad as in ed tech, ad tech
Mhm.
company called Ionic. It acquired a gaming startup for $100 million. But surprisingly, both of these companies I haven't heard of. So I think based out of some European country.
Wait, sorry, this is what? Which company was acquiring what?
So there's a company called Ionic, which is
Uh-huh.
a gaming and ad
Yeah,
tech company
yeah,
that
yeah.
has acquired a Hamburg-based company called Emox.
Mm,
Xmox, sorry, Xmox.
mm, mm.
I'm just sharing the article in even chat.
Okay.
So that was a interesting acquisition as well, and it's not like small, $100 million.
Well, compared to
And
Unity's $17.5 billion, and
yeah,
definitely 100 million seems small. But yeah. Mm,
that
There was
definitely is.
there was another big um there was another acquired thing happening this week where Embracer Group, who have a lot of large shares in companies like THQ Nordic, Gearbox,
mm.
and Square Enix's certain companies, they acquired the IP rights to Lord of the Rings,
Oh,
along
interesting.
with the Tripwire Interactive Studio, who made games like Killing Floor, Chivalry 2,
Mm.
and a bunch of other small indie studios.
So they just acquired the Lord of the Rings IP.
IP rights, yeah, for movies, TV shows, games, merchandising, board games, stage plays, and even theme park rights.
Hmm, got it. I don't know whether this deal is like an exclusive IP right acquisition or what exactly, but when I was back with Dana in San Francisco, Dana had the rights to produce Transformers games, and Transformers is originally owned by this company called Hasbro,
Hasbro. Yeah.
right? So they had acquired the rights to produce Hasbro-based games. Oh, sorry, not Hasbro-based games, Transformers-based games, but it was exclusively only for three mobile games. So it was a very restrictive deal, um, where you cannot really produce games on console or PC. You were only limited to produce games on a mobile, and that too only limited to like three during specific years that we had to launch and all. So I was working on like Transformers game number two back in the day, and then after Dana had produced these three games, then the rights went to Nintendo. So Hasbro partnered directly with Nintendo in Japan to produce the next series of Transformers games.
Yeah.
Hmm. Or
Which
or wait, was it the other way around? Nintendo had partnered with Dana to produce the next series of Nintendo based game. I think that was the case, not the other way around. My
Yeah,
bad.
Transformers went to High Moon Studios and
Correct.
Beanox, I think.
Yeah. High Moon, I think, was the one. But yeah, like it's especially with the companies that make a lot of money through intellectual property, they enter into a lot of these deals where they'll give the rights to develop something outside their core focus area and expertise to some other studio and let them sort of share revenue and do a revenue split or a profit split kind of an equation, uh, where they don't end up taking a lot of the risk, but they just leverage the existing IP. Good. So I think there's a lot of information regarding acquisitions and and whatnot. We got how to money start. But yeah, cool. For those who just joined in after we got started, if you guys have any other questions, topics, or anything interesting that you guys wanna share slash talk about, just feel free to raise your hand. Or if you want us to continue talking more about different acquisitions as well. The Unity one is definitely interesting. I didn't had no idea, but thanks, Darren, for bringing that up. I'll read up about it as well.
Yeah. It's very interesting to decline such a huge amount, especially
Mm,
when Unreal is like sort of on the seems to be on the winning side at the moment for next
mm.
gen development.
Yeah, I think it's more about Unity definitely has a space in the market. It's just that how they value right now because a lot of the stock market is down as well, right? Globally. So a lot of the stocks are actually undervalued. And that's why a lot of the bigger players are trying to acquire smaller players because their stocks are undervalued and they can still pay up a 50% premium on the stock price and still pay a reasonable amount, right? Not an outrageous amount. So um, Unity board of directors would internally say that, okay, we value ourselves more. We just understand that today's market scenario is slightly bad. So our market reputation is not that great, or at least the stock price is not that great, but our actual value is much higher. And that's why they would have sort of declined it. Usually, think that's the reason. And I mean, it's a similar thought process behind why Elon Musk is also backing out of the Tesla, sorry, not Tesla, Twitter deal,
Twitter,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, because Twitter prices are way down compared to what they were when he had put in the deal, right? Ranjit, not sure what you mean Unity versus Unreal. Do you want to elaborate? I think you mentioned it in the event chat.
Yeah, he did. No
Hmm.
discussion on it.
Okay, got it.
It's
Yeah,
on
yeah.
question.
Hmm. Wait, not sure. You might want to raise your hand to explain. Are you asking like Unity versus Unreal regarding the acquisition thing or Unity versus Unreal in general? Because if you're just talking about Unity versus Unreal in general, I think we've discussed that quite a lot. Unreal is not easy for Android. Um, not sure what do you mean, Aksh. Not easy for Android in what sense? Mm-hmm.
In a development or running the actual games on, I don't know, are there games on mobile that are made in Unreal?
Yeah, ample, right? There
I
are
know a
ample
lot of
games that are.
Unity games.
Yeah, so a lot of the hyper casual, smaller APK sizes, etc., you'll find them on Unity, but there are still a lot of projects that are done on Unreal for mobile as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, okay. Any terms again? Fine. Life is Strange Android version is made with Unreal. Yep. Life is Strange, I think, is a story-based game, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah, choice based.
Yeah, choice based. Yeah. I think it was a very interesting game as well. But yeah, awesome. Um, are there other popular games that you guys can think of as well?
BGMI is
Uh,
made in Unreal. Is that true?
BGMI is, I think, Unreal. Yes, that might be actually correct.
Interesting.
Hmm. Because this thing, the parent developer is actually Korean company, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It scales very well then for low end devices to be able to run it so well.
So a lot of it is actually comes down to how you have optimized the game as well. So when you're building the game for that large scale, right, you're already working very closely with the engine itself. So for example, let's say if today Outscale set up a small game dev team, right? Maybe we want to use Unreal, maybe we want to use our Unity, right? But because we are such a small player in the market, we'll be limited to what is publicly available from the engine, right? We don't have access to the source code, etc. as well. But if we are a large publisher or a developer and we potentially make multi-million, mm, dollars a year, and have a successful track record, etc. In that case, what usually ends up happening is that you have a very close relationship with a B2B relationship with the studio who produces the engine, whether in this case might be Unity or Epic, right? So a lot of the times you even have access to the source code of the engine itself. And as your engineering team is working on building a game itself, they can make improvements and changes and customizations to the engine in order to make things more compact, make things run a certain way, or optimize graphics in a certain way, depending on whatever their needs might be, right? So a lot of those kind of um, improvements slash changes can actually go from the game team back to the actual engine itself, right?
Yeah.
But for that, you need a lot of close relationship with the developers themselves. And for companies like BGMI, etc., who are already produces hundreds of millions of revenue a year, right?
Hmm.
Those things are usually not an issue. They'll usually have access to the entire engine code, and you can see a lot of these. Yeah, you guys know about this GDC Vault, right?
Yeah.
So Game Developers Conference has like a vault of video archive of a lot of resources and talks from the previous GDC conferences internationally, especially the main one in San Francisco. So you guys can go in and check out the vault, and there'll be a lot of technical talks about um, even this company that made Limbo, right? Playdead,
Yeah.
uh, right? So they've also worked on this second version called
Inside?
Inside. Yes. So even there's a technical talk on Inside, which basically highlights out that while working on Inside, how they made a lot of improvements to the Unity engine itself while working on the mobile version of Inside. So you were able to kind of take a lot of these changes and then put them back into the engine. And then Unity can decide whether this is something relevant for the broader audience and is it a good optimization or a good feature to add as well. Mm, Yeah. Piyush, what's this Activision Blizzard versus Snapchat?
So I was lately listening to this podcast, and there was this statement that Snapchat's founder recently, gave, and he was kind of boasting about how people who use Snapchat are very much addicted, and there's not a day that goes by where they do not spend an average of like 30 minutes on Snapchat. So, like, just talking about retention and other things after they have introduced the streak and the other concepts inside Snapchat. So parallelly, I was listening about the games of Activision Blizzard, and the comparison was so huge that when Activision Blizzard gives stats of average time that people spend on their games, it's like 2 to 3 hours. And they're like, a person's mindset is when they say, oh fuck, I have used Snapchat for like 45 minutes today. And if you talk to a gamer, their perspective is like, I just played for 2 hours today, not more than that.
Mm,
So so that's the big difference between these two products. And mm, I, after just listening to this, I also searched like what is their total net worth and the valuation of these two companies. So some people might know that Activision Blizzard just got acquired for like some 70 billion or something like that after it was publicly listed, um,
Yeah.
acquired by Microsoft, right, for 70 or 80 billion, I guess. And market cap of Snapchat right now is close to 35 to 40 billion dollars. So that huge gap there is, that too after Snapchat has all the ways to monetize its platform by ads, by selling the data, blah blah other shit, right, running ads and everything like Facebook and Instagram and everything is doing. But comparing it to a gaming company, like it was at least a shock for me when I read that Activision Blizzard is a bigger company than Snapchat.
Yeah. No, I think Activision Blizzard was always a much bigger company than Snapchat.
Hmm.
At least I was aware of that. But then I think the interesting point here was the perspective of a person who's playing
Hmm.
games and saying, I just played for 2 hours, say League of Legends or
Yeah.
Dota or some other Blizzard game, Hearthstone, etc. Right? Versus saying, shit, yeah, I wasted an hour in Facebook or something like
Exactly.
any of these other social media apps, right? Um, I think a lot of it actually comes down to sort of human perception, right? Um, Especially the games that we usually love and enjoy, right? Like there is a sense of satisfaction at the end of playing that game. Even sometimes you might be frustrated with the game just because you kept losing or something, right? And you'll hear stories of people throwing their phones outside the window because they lost back to back games in PUBG or whatever, right? But like still, it's more about like we feel like when we are spending time on Facebook or Insta or something, it's we subconsciously treat it as that this is something we are not supposed to do, but because these social apps are constructed in a way that they keep giving us these small dopamine hits in our brain, that psychologically we kind of stay hooked to continue to use them. But the moment we come out of that mind frame, we realize shit, we wasted X amount of time, right? Whereas games is something where we are opting in to play them in the first place, right? So, uh, you know, like games are not that notorious to keep pulling you in from like the things like push notification. Hey, your friend just, sent like this photo or something, right? Like Facebook, specifically starting with Facebook, right? They started using a lot of these psychological hacks to keep bringing the audience back into the app itself, right? And make
Hmm.
people more and more addicted towards using the app on a daily basis, right? Games also, to a large extent, use a lot of these kind of tricks itself, but not to that extreme, right? Because they're trying to optimize for other parameters than just average time spent inside the game. So I think from that perspective, if you think about it, it makes sense to say why it feels more okay to spend 2 3 hours in a game, either feel enjoyed or frustrated, but still say, oh, I spent 3 hours, I just played this game for 2 hours only, and I want to play more versus fuck, I wasted 1 hour in Facebook or Instagram, whatever the case may be.
Yep.
Pop-up
Exactly.
notifications after unlocking level up gifts, items, and games. Yeah, so I think even a lot of these free-to-play games started using a similar kind of a thought process, right? But they're trying to optimize slightly different things versus what a social networking app is trying to optimize for. Aksh mentioned, right, Clafton is investing 100 million in India. I think that's also very true. But again, these $100 million plans are usually spread across multiple years. And, Loco is actually the one that they invested in, which Aksh you mentioned. Um, I think this is something that is still in beta, but Loco is also starting to launch some investment program where they want to work with smaller game studios and you know get them to launch their games on the Loco platform or something like that. Um, has anybody heard of this or not? Mm, because I was talking to one of the senior guys in Loco and they've shared this. I forgot whether I was supposed to share this or not. I don't know whether this is secret information or it's not publicly available yet.
Only. So, are
I
you
think it
talking
might be
about
public.
Loco or the idea that it's investing in company?
No, no, Loco itself is, I think, launching a new program for younger gaming startups, and is planning to do some investments in gaming startups themselves, um, where they want to encourage these games to basically launch on the Loco platform,
Hmm.
right? I think Darren, you were saying something, right?
Yeah, I think this is something that is known, I'm pretty sure. Because I have seen that Crafton was investing that much amount into the Indian ecosystem.
The Crafton part is correct. That's
Yeah.
publicly available and has been already done a lot of publicity around it, right? But I was talking about the Loco part. That Loco is also internally launching their own gaming investment program or something like that. Um, so yeah, I mean, guys, just don't share it publicly. Just keep it.
Yeah, we are live streaming on 5 platforms, and you are saying don't share it publicly.
All right. Okay. All right.
But I
Well,
think even Router was doing something similar, right? There's another platform in India called Router, similar to Loco, I think, who were
how is
who
router spelled? Because I don't know about
are
this one.
ROOTER.
Okay. Okay.
They are
We'll
like
check it out.
an app that does live streams and has its own, like, it's like a social media platform and all.
Live streaming for games, basically, kind of, right?
Yeah. Social media platform for gamers, which I also
Hmm.
think just recently got an investment.
Hmm. Okay. Got it. Got it. Yeah, this one I don't know about. But Loco is fairly large now, right?
Yeah.
Like this is router. If I'm not sure whether it's still in early stages or what exactly. But yeah, I think for Loco, the core business is around getting more games publicly available on their platform, right? Um, so that more and more people eventually come and watch these games because their business doesn't revolve around building games and launching games, but more about bringing people to come and watch and participate in these games as esports, basically. Mm. I'm just going through the chat. There's just a bunch of information in there, discussions happening. I might have missed. Sajan is asking, I guess working for AAA requires a lot of skills. So I wanted to know in what ways I could sharpen my skill set along with practicing outscale assignments. Uh, Sajin, actually, not much. You'd be surprised because a lot of the AAA studios who are looking at folks at the entry level, at least from engineering perspective, right, as a junior engineer, associate engineer, whatever the title may be, um, they're looking at strong fundamentals, right? So we've had folks who have gone on to get placed with this Sumo Digital, right? So there were job offers from Sumo Digital, from there's another AAA studio, Dream 11, has its own game studio as well, which is working on AAA titles now. So
MPL.
no, no, no. Dream 11 has their own studio
No, no, no.
called.
I think MPL is also working on a triple title by
Correct,
with the
correct.
new studio that they have
Yeah,
Mayhem.
correct, correct. So MPL is also has hired developers from us that are, I think, now a part of the Mayhem Game Studio, which is a separate studio. So I'm friends with the CEO of that studio as well, Ojas. Um, but essentially, right, like when they're looking at engineers at the entry level, they're looking at sorry, strong fundamental knowledge, right? So from the assignments perspective and like what you need to practice, just make sure that your fundamentals are rock solid, right? So each of the topics that have been covered, etc., right? Um, those are things that you understand in detail. A lot of people think that they need some fancy shit on their portfolios, etc. But it's always about good, sound, strong fundamentals more than anything fancy or crazy. because they don't expect you to be 100 people team and have a GTA on your portfolio while you're still uh, working to get into your first job, right? They don't have that expectation, right? So it's more about understanding when it comes to topics like data structures, algorithms, etc. Right? Having a good sound understanding of why things work the way they do, right? So when you guys cover data structures modules inside the full stack program, um, essentially you will be focusing on doing a lot of um, fundamental thinking around how does different data structure even work, right? So for example, like even now, right now we are hiring for a senior full stack developer within Outscale as well, for a full-time senior full stack developer, right? And I'm interviewing, and my head of technology, uh, my team member is also interviewing a lot of engineering candidates. People with even 3 4 years of experience can't explain what a linked list is. And if I give them a slightly tricky question on a linked list, right? And tricky in the sense, not even like an Amazon question. It's a very basic fundamental question itself, right? If somebody can literally draw boxes and arrows on a piece of paper and have that conceptual understanding of how a linked list actually works, logic wise, not how it's implemented in C++ or Java or C Sharp, etc. But logically, how does it work? And you're able to explain that to me in plain, simple English, right? Then you'll be able to answer a lot of these questions, right? And people completely fuck up on those kind of things. Completely fuck up, right? They will never, because they just try to mug up shit from a Stack Overflow answers, try to remember a lot of these leet code problems, which are repeated in Amazon interviews and whatnot, right? That might help you there, but it definitely won't help you here, right? So a lot of focus is on making sure you understand if we are doing navigation through a linked list, how do you navigate, how do you do things and all, right? A lot of these fundamental concepts that we keep touching on in the program, that's what's really important, right? Yeah, like logic and fundamental, those are the two things that you need to really sharpen up and not worry about fancy advanced jazz, right? Like nobody's expecting you to make a GTA clone on your portfolio in order to get into an entry level job um, in a AAA studio as a developer, right? So keep your fundamentals rock solid. Have good diverse projects on your portfolio, and that's really the secret sauce. The only thing is that the only way it comes through is like honest practice. That's it. Otherwise, there's no other sort of recipe for success here. Yeah. Hopefully that answers your question. If there's anything else you want to ask as well, just let me know in the chat. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Some new folks joining in. If you guys have any other things that you want to discuss, just feel free to raise your hand. Um, Akshay. I don't know whether that's Akshay or Aksh. Like node null head. Akshay. Okay, got it. Node null head. I don't know what you mean. I'm guessing you're talking in context of the links list. I'm referring to the event chat, guys. But yeah. Um, cool. Did I miss any other questions? Fantasy game Loco is competing with Twitch. Anyone heard of Tech Sachi Gaming Studio? They have taken my interview yesterday. I have no idea, but then again, Akshay, do you want to share what was the interview about? Is that something you are interested in sharing? If yes, just feel free to raise your hand. If you drop it in the chat, it might take you a while. All right, let me just bring you up on the stage. Oh, wait, you might have to raise your hand again.
I actually invited him to speak.
Oh, okay, you've already done it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Uh, but yeah, I've not seen this studio or heard about it. So, not sure what they do exactly. And I think, truth be told, in the last sort of 12 months, there are so many new studios that have reached out to Outscale for hiring talent that I never even knew existed. I've been frankly surprised as how fast the Indian gaming ecosystem is actually growing. Um, Majority of these are Indian studios. spread across the country based in different locations. Earlier, you would imagine that majority are in Bangalore. Now, that is also not even the case. We've had well funded, Y Combinator funded studio based in Indore. Uh, Yeah, let that sink in for a little bit. A YC well funded studio is based in Indore and they want to build a game studio out of Indore itself. So they were finding it challenging to ask high quality talent to relocate from Delhi or Mumbai or Bangalore to Indore. And, they were finding it challenging. So we were helping them find the right senior resources as well. Um, but yeah, so like my point here was that there have been so many new studios popping up, and a lot of them have good senior teams. They're working on ambitious projects. Some are working on the classical gaming projects. Others are working on something related to Web3 crypto gaming kind of space as well. But there are definitely a lot of interesting new game companies and game projects coming up. So I'm not surprised that there is another game studio that you mentioned about, which I don't know about the name as well. So, but that's a good sign always. Yeah. Um, cool. But if there's something that you want to share as well regarding what was the interview process like, and if you have any other questions around the interview process or overall, definitely just let me know. Yeah. Send this out. Cool. Awesome. Anyone else? Any other thing that you guys want to bring up? Aditya, Malar, Bobby, good to have you guys here as well. I think you guys will have to raise your hand as well if you guys want to speak up.
I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, in every industry, there are usually like two or three big players that end up becoming very big, and eventually they acquire majority of companies, left, right, center. So, if we talk about the same in the gaming industry globally, like broadly, like there are a bunch of big companies like Rockstar, Activision, and then Electronic Arts, maybe one of them. But right now, we have seen that these companies are themselves getting either acquired or merged with uh, big tech companies, like broadly that are or like other Web2 companies like this one Activision got into Microsoft, and maybe I think Electronic Arts also got merged with some company recently. There was some news like that as well. So, like,
If
is
Electronic Arts
this
got an acquisition,
huh?
I doubt if Electronic Arts was in a merger.
I think it was in a merger, but I just googled and it said that that was a rumor.
Yeah, yeah. No, he is very big. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so in that case, like, what do you feel would be the biggest companies eventually, that will end up acquiring a lot of other companies, and will there be a gaming company that ends up becoming a very big, like Facebook, that acquires every other social media company, like Facebook just did? So will there be a company in gaming industry as well that will become the sole kingpin and the monopolistic nature?
Hmm. Which one are you thinking of as the ones that have monopoly otherwise?
In gaming right now or in tech broadly?
Broadly tracked.
So tech, I feel like Facebook is definitely one, Google is one, because Facebook has been dominating all the social media platforms. Starting from like whichever company had new ideas, they either got acquired or Facebook blatantly stole the idea itself.
Hmm.
Similar in Similarly, Google is one big overall like search engine, and broadly tech wise, Google is one.
Hmm. I think majority of these are all sort of trillion-dollar companies, right? Probably Facebook
Yeah,
is the only exception, right? Like where their valuation is not over 1 trillion, I think.
yeah, it's
Uh,
like 600 or 700.
600, 700 billion, yeah. But then again, right? Like you have Apple, you have Google, Tesla. These are trillion-dollar companies, Microsoft, right? But then again, these are just the top five companies in the world, right? Uh, Usually, right, like even if you ignore the trillion-dollar companies, right, usually there are certain there is this concept of winner takes all. Has anybody heard of this? Yes, no.
Mm, yeah, like in poker or some casino games, like, or is it
Yeah,
a general
no, generally.
general
So
idiom?
yeah, general EDM itself, right? Like that winner takes all, as in like there will be only one winner and winner gets all the spoils, right? Like nobody else uh gets the right to claim anything. Otherwise, usually you would imagine that somebody as first prize gets something, second prize gets something smaller,
Mm-hmm.
third prize gets something smaller, right? But
Mm-hmm.
but there are certain markets and certain dynamics in certain kind of sectors where winners takes all just by the sheer dynamics of it itself, right? So, for example, um, Amazon is a good example where the more they start to scale their business, right, the larger the warehouses are, the in the cost per product stored gets lower, right? This is a classic example of what in the startup ecosystem is called as economies of scale, right? So as you start to scale your offering, you're able to have more and more discounts and distribute the cost of operations across millions and millions of products, right? And as a result, you have more power in every sense of the word when you're operating at a very large scale, right? So, and there are different kinds of this power. For example, right, like I have a factory that can produce 1 million shoes a day, right? While Piyush has a factory that can only produce 100 shoes a day, right? Now, I can do a lot of things differently. I can price my shoe 10 rupees lower than Piyush, but still sell way more quantity and still be able to make profit, while Piyush would completely go out of business, right? Because you cannot reduce your price by even 10 rupees or something, right? So those are the kind of things that people and companies that operate at scale are able to do, which smaller players do not have leverage to do, right? And as a result, companies like Amazon, etc., will always have certain kind of advantage running these sort of large economies at scale, right? And that gives them pricing power, that gives them distribution power, that gives them marketing power and whatnot as well, data power, right? So with games is probably one example where you will never have a winners take all kind of a paradigm, right? Just let that sink in and just think a little bit about it, right? Um, because think about this, right? If there is a Candy Crush, right, that dominates the charts when it comes to, say, a category for match three games, there will always be new kind of match three games that will keep coming up, which will have maybe a different theme, a different design, different kind of mechanics that will attract and appeal to a different taste of players. Players with different kind of taste, right? Maybe I want to play match three, but with a football and a soccer theme or something, right? Versus others might want to play match three with the classic candy style theme. Somebody might want to play match three with not candies but cars or whatever, right? So games, just because it's a very what do you call? It's a very it's a taste driven industry, right? Like every person has a different taste in terms of what kind of games they enjoy playing, right? There will be different segments of players, there will be different segments of companies. They can continue to grow large, but you will never have the dynamics of a winner takes all, right? At least the companies that are building games. I'm not talking about sort of platforms and such, right? You can compare Apple App Store versus Play Store, etc., right? You can compare other classical examples that Uber versus Ola. That's another famous one of winner takes all kind of markets, right? So the larger the scale you have, the more monopolistic behavior that you can extend in the market and take forceful control of the market, right? So to your original question, Pish, I don't think that happens in games as easily as you might think. And that's why I don't see that kind of a behavior happen. Sure, there will be games that might become large, but then those companies would usually be an umbrella of games, right? So there would be some entity that has a bunch of studios, and each of those studios is like a behemoth, a multiple billion dollar studios under one entity. And now this parent entity is worth hundreds of billions, right? So something like that would be the case, if that makes sense.
Got it. Yep, totally.
Yep. I think Aditya, Bobby, Malar, Mr. You guys want to add something?
No, no, I actually joined late, but yeah, I just heard a little bit about games, winner takes it all, Apple versus games and all, but yeah, nothing much to add here.
Yeah. Awesome. Just unmute and yeah, add because I think this is kind of overlapping between what the tech industry kind of does. Because like Google has like a winner take all mentality. The moment you have Google search dominate the market or like Chrome engine dominate the market, right? It completely killed every other browser altogether, right? So, um, but yeah. Um, mm, Ranjit, you have shared the link for EA's acquisition talks. Interesting. I'll check that out. Thanks for sharing. Yep. Does anybody have anything else that they want to add on top of this thing, or winner takes all? Yep, exactly. Sort of monopoly in the market. Correct. Uh, Akshay is asking, is Tech XR a competitor of Outscale, though they are in AR VR teaching space? I think Tech XR is running some kind of a program on AR VR, right? If I'm not mistaken. Um, Topic change. Yeah. I don't think there is that's direct competition or anything, but even competition is always good, right? We'll check out exactly what it is, but I think from what I've known at least or heard, like they're more focused on the AR VR and the way I think, yeah, Bobby, I definitely can't hear you. I think you'll have to unmute. Uh, are you trying to add something about? No, unmute first. Yeah. Okay. Um, they have courses related to AR VR only. Yep. I think AR VR, the way I think, like at least this is my thought perspective. I think it's easy to learn tools to do AR VR, but it's hard to master fundamentals of programming and so on and so forth, right? So uh, that's where I think the differences in terms of what you really need to master uh, in order to be successful in some kind of a domain, right? Um, like a lot of people come in and ask, right? Like, hey, am I a Unity developer, a Unreal developer? I was like, no, no, no. You need to be a game developer, right? There is a difference between just a Unity developer versus an Unreal developer versus a game developer, right? A game developer is somebody who's comfortable switching from um, Unity to Unreal to HTML5 to something else as long as they're focused on building games, right? And they have that kind of a fundamental. So I think my thought process is the same when it comes to AR, VR, XR, MR, blah, blah, R, all the R's of the word, right? The idea here is that if you have to have good fundamental knowledge first before you can stack on, being a good sort of a game developer, having good fundamental knowledge to like some of the previous questions that I was answering today, right? That to me is like level zero, right? Like that forms your foundation. And after that, you can master AR, VR, etc. on top. So, so I think it's more of that thought process, which is different, or at least that's what my thought process is around it. Uh, but I'll have to still check what exactly is Tech XR. I think what is the name? Where is it? I lost the chat. Tech XR. Yeah, cool. There's some super nerdy chat regarding quaternions and something something. What the hell is happening here? Euler
2.5.
angles, Euler angles and quaternions. What the hell?
Ranjit, you'll have to come up.
First quaternion came, and then Euler angles. And what about egg and hen? Okay, uh, too nerdy. But yeah, uh, wait, Ranjit, you want to add something?
Yeah, yeah. What?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Yeah, he was asking why do you have to learn quaternion if we have Euler angles? Because we first the quaternion came, then only you can think of Euler angles, right?
No, I completely am lost where the question started. I'm trying to find where is this thread starting from. Who was the first person who brought this up, and where is it?
No, he was Bobby only. He wasn't able to speak, so he wrote the question.
Oh, yeah,
Dude.
Bobby tried to speak.
Yeah.
I can see him unmuted.
Oh, okay, okay. I found it now. So Bobby's question is, oh wait, Bobby, can
Yeah.
you speak now?
Nope.
No, can't hear you. I can see you unmuted, but can't hear you. I think some mic issue. So the question is, why do we need quaternions if we have Euler angles? Anyone wants to answer that?
What bird is that? I don't know.
That's why I said it's like a super tough question. Malak, Mr. Aditya, anyone else?
I have seen Nishchal answer a lot of questions. So I bet on
No.
Nishchal.
Okay.
So I think, I mean, my best guess is so quaternions, usually there's a problem called as gimbal lock. I don't know if anyone has even heard about it. If no, then you can just type in Google and just Google gimbal lock. And I think Euler angles wouldn't be able to solve a problem such as, this problem as like gimbal lock. So that is why we would need, quaternions for it.
Can
And
you can
that's
you
more
just
like an
in
advanced.
can you just in one line just explain what is gimbal lock so that everybody who's here can probably just quickly get a logical sense of what exactly
I
it is?
mean, it's really difficult to explain in one line what gimbal lock is exactly because it's easier when people see it. I mean, if I'll even say it something, it wouldn't make sense because I think there is a really good, a GIF kind of, you know, uh, like demonstration of a gimbal lock, which makes very much sense. So probably I can quickly find a link and send it over in the chat. That would make more sense.
Hmm.
My answer would be like I answered it in the placement session, but I know it is not that polished answer. But yeah, like as per my understanding, quaternion is the unity's way to understand how rotation works. So Euler angles is pure vector math versus quaternion is unity's way to understand and process rotations. That's why we use quaternion inside unity. So yeah, like, but yeah, feel free to correct me and add more points, guys. I'm just wrapping it up here.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, initially I was looking at the same. I was about to
Yeah, and
share the same Wikipedia link. Yeah.
I think, I mean, a very simple explanation would be like, has anyone ever experienced, a, I mean, a situation where they're trying to rotate something and it's not rotating? It's like keep on going on the same axis even if you're trying to rotate in like two different axes.
Hmm.
So probably I think that's the closest, explanation to how a gimbal lock would look like because it's like locked onto the same axis, even though if we are trying to rotate in like different axes. So I'm not sure if anyone has ever experienced this, but I don't even know how to even create a gimbal lock. So that's
Hmm.
difficult to answer as well.
Got it. But yeah, I think it's an interesting problem as well. So we can continue definitely in the chat after this one because I know we are about to hit the 8 o'clock time limit as well. It looks like the rotation for the 3D matrix. Yeah. So, but like I think this was probably the most nerdiest techie question in clan ops. Oh, sorry, clan labs ever. Usually there are questions related to uh, like sometimes even things about implementation or programming patterns and stuff like that, but not usually around like hardcore 3D math and things like that, right? So, uh, but yeah, any,
And we have also talked about blockchain. So you still win, or
yeah,
we win.
yeah, yeah. And we talked about blockchain. We've talked about different kind of algorithms uh, on chain and so forth as well. So, uh, but yeah. Good. Awesome. Anything else? Otherwise, I think what we'll do is I'm actually not that well, as you guys might have heard from my throat as well. Was down with COVID for the past couple of days. Um, mm, so yeah, I think Malar is also jumping off because the co-working space is also closing down. But yeah, cool, awesome. I don't see much questions now coming in. Are there more questions? If so, just quickly drop them in. Um, Unrelated to the chat, can we organize a session? Not sure what exactly. Can you just quickly DM Piyush some details around what session? We can take a look. Yeah. Okay. Awesome, guys. So again, thanks for participating in and staying around, and for those who came on stage and participated as well. Thanks, Mr. Ranjit, uh, Bobby, for that super nerdy question, and no thanks to Aditya who didn't